Alright, check 1, 2. Check, check. Alright, check 1, 2. Okay. I gotta put that closer. There we go. That's a bit better. Alright, we're getting set up here though in the beginning. Alright, so welcome to the Summer of Speed. This is another showcase, much like we did last summer. We did fighting games, we did ports, we did European games, we did all sorts of stuff. This year we're focusing on one thing, and it's going to take us a little bit of time, and that is entirely on racing games on the Game Boy Advance. Let's see what am I doing here. Go. What else was I going to do? I don't know. So we have on the docket probably 100 games total. And when I initially started getting interested in this, I was just going to do the best ones I found, or the ones I liked, which would be about maybe a dozen. But I felt like it'd probably behoove us to go through the entire library. And we're going to talk about why that is in a sec here. So let me see. Okay. I've got this little we'll call it a PowerPoint. It's really just on my Album by Photo app on my phone. I didn't really feel like making a real PowerPoint. It probably wouldn't have translated well. So we're going to kind of cover a couple things really quick just to set the basis for how we're moving forward. I am going to say we're not going to get into any actual judging of the racing tonight. Those will begin next week on the 30th, and I need to change my sign because I said 20th instead of 30th accidentally. The first will be the stock or circuit arcade racers, and those are about 24 of those, I believe. So that's going to be our first category. Then we're going to go into, I believe it's dirt racers or rally racers, combat ones, and mission-oriented, kind of GTA-like. The week after that, then we're going to do the kart racers, and I think the isometric and the top-down racers, then kind of the weird stuff, and we're going to conclude with the highlights, the best of each one, that kind of stuff. I keep saying that. So first, I wanted to kind of do a brief little history of racing games in general, and you're gonna have to kind of bear with me, kind of cut me some slack here. I kind of like to set a good foundation. So, where I really want to start things off, we're not going to go all the way back into the 70s with the Atari things. The first arcade game I really wanted to talk about was 1982. Yeah, there's the itinerary. So Stock Car Racers, Rally Street, and Mission and Combat Racers, Go-Karts, Top-Downs, Isometrics, Funny Car Prototypes, Bootlegs, and Excite Likes, which are games like Excite Bike, which it's a racing game, but didn't really fit the kind of vibe here. We're kind of going with car racers and like things of that sort. And then finally, the Championship Cup. So I want to talk about Pole Position first. Pole Position's interesting because it's the very first of the arcade racers where you have this third person kind of back over the top of the car perspective. And the other really important thing is that the track is being pulled towards you. So your car is basically staying in the center of the screen, and the track is coming towards you. And instead of like on a more traditional three-dimensional plane now where you're going around the track is being pulled towards the player on the screen. And that was able to simulate a very high level of speed. And it's a really, really interesting game because like this is 1982, right? It was very well done for an arcade game. We're actually going to play this one. We're going to play a couple others tonight. But we're going to get through the lecture part first. Then after that comes Outrun in 1986. And it's very similar to Pole Position. But this one's interesting because it's more of a rally kind of game where it's introducing this concept of you are racing to checkpoints. You're not racing other cars necessarily. You have like maybe one or two other racers on the road with you, but it is simultaneously giving you times to meet as well as a much longer linear path. Again, absolutely gorgeous game. This one's one of my favorites. We're going to play the GBA. Oh, how does this work? The GBA Museum Collection for Sega. We're going to play that version, which is still very good. We'll play that one tonight as well. So these are kind of where we're beginning the two-dimensional kind of... These are flat sprites, but they're simulating three things. One, that the car has volume. When you turn the car, the sprite will display the sides of the car. You know, you're kind of getting that haptic feedback. And we're also simulating speed. A high frame rate, things are going by you very fast, your decisions have consequences, that kind of deal. Those are the kind of things that we want first and foremost from our racing games. And the last one I really want to hit on is Virtua Racing. This is where we have the first kind of instances of a polygonal car, a real car, not just a stock like a flat sprite, but this is actually a polygonal shape, a polygonal mass that's going around a three-dimensional track. That's kind of where this one really sets that bar, right? And we're going to stop here because this is where I really want discussion on the GBA racing games to end. And there's a reason for that. Let's talk about the GBA itself now, right? We all know this thing. When it came out in 2001, it was impressive. It was small. It was the next Nintendo handheld. But when you really begin to think about it, it was a portable Super Nintendo. And you can see that from the library that they put out on it, right? There was the Super Mario Brothers Advance, which was just reskins of the Super Mario All-Star versions of Super Mario Brothers 2, Super Mario Brothers 3, and Super Mario Land, or Super Mario World, I'm sorry, and then Yoshi's Island. There was a Link to the Past port. There was F-Zero, there was Star Fox. Most of the titles that made the Game Boy stand out were these older games. Now, and I want to emphasize here the date 2001, right? When this thing came out, the Super Nintendo was 9 years old. I want you to think about that. If where we're at right now, that would be the Switch, right? Like, for us, because we're used to these longer development cycles and longer life cycles for our systems now, 9 years doesn't seem like that big a deal. But back then in the 90s, 9 years was like 3 generations of games, 3 generations of consoles. So it seemed a bit almost asinine to be starting your brand new handheld with old games, right? So we're kind of starting off on this kind of shaky ground here. And there's another thing to consider with this, is that the Game Boy Advance was not the sole holder of the portable game industry, right? There were actually two others at this time. There was the Sega Nomad, which, while not successful for various reasons, functionally was doing what the Game Boy Advance was trying to do much, much better. It was saying, you want a portable 16-bit system, here it is, and you can play the cartridges from the Genesis on it, right? Now, for all its flaws and for all its weaknesses, it had a backlit screen. It had functionality, right? You didn't have to go out and buy a whole brand new game or a game you already had, which was one of the big problems of, like, if you're getting a Game Boy Advance, odds are you probably already had a Super Nintendo. If you had a Super Nintendo, odds are you probably already had Mario Kart. You already had F-Zero. You already had Legend of Zelda. You had these games already on a system. Now, granted, you couldn't take that thing with you. You couldn't take it to school. You couldn't take it to college. You couldn't take it on the bus. But the point remained. You know, they were banking on their clientele to go out and rebuy another game they already had or could have. There was also the Neo Geo Pocket Color. Again, backlit screen. Again, not very successful, but a competitor nonetheless that they had to consider. A little bit lower on the graphical end. I don't think it was actually 16-bit. It may have been 8-bit, but still, it was out there. There was also, in Japan, we didn't get this one, the Bandai WonderSwan Color. This thing was actually a direct competitor to the GBA. It was a 16-bit system. You can't tell, but I think it did. I may have actually had a backlit screen. I can't quite recall. And it had a robust enough CPU that it was a direct competitor, functionally. There are several games that started on the WonderSwan that got ported to the GBA later in life. Riviera the Promised Land was a WonderSwan game by Sting. So they weren't alone. They didn't have a sole market focus. And the first thing they do is try and start porting a lot of these games. So what I want you to take away from this whole thing is that the GBA was functionally a system that was 10 years behind the standard pace. From its birth to its end in 2004, I believe, it was largely a decade behind at most points. Now, that's not saying it was bad. That's not saying it was successful or unsuccessful. And that's not saying it didn't have a great library. It did. It had a fantastic library. But where we're getting at is if it was 10 years behind in 2001, I'd put it at 1991, which is where this Super Nintendo was at. At the end of its life, in 2004, it was at 1994, which was where the Saturn was at. The end of its life was beginning where we had these boundaries being pushed as far as technical limitations go. Because believe it or not, it could actually do the same things that the Genesis and the Super Nintendo do, which was simulate a 32-bit processor. It could simulate a 32-bit environment. It could do functional 3D. And I'm not talking like gritty pre-rendered sprites. You know, you're probably thinking of Doom on the GBA or something like that. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking actual functional polygonal polygons, actual 3D meshed sprites, 3D meshed objects, 3D meshed terrain in the GBA. Now you might be thinking, what the hell, where are you seeing any of this? This is why I'm so focused on the racing genre, because that is where this was happening. If you wanted the the missing link between the Game Boy Advance and the DS, which was doing 64-bit very well by the time it came on, this is where we're looking. It was the GBA. It was the end of the GBA's lifespan when they really got experimental with pushing some of the boundaries on some of these games. And they worked very, very well. I'm going to tell you that now. We're going to see a bunch of them that worked well. Some didn't. It's okay. So here's what we're going to be doing for the next 6 weeks. Every Wednesday, this is what we're going to be doing for racing games. We're going to separate them into their subgenres. So stock, rally kart, racing, etc. Because we don't really want to sit here and compare Need for Speed to fucking Shrek Swamp Carts or whatever the fuck it is, right? We're not going to sit here and try and put these two different games on an equal footing, because they're really not. They're different styles of game, different mechanics, different focus, different goals, right? We kind of want to give them as much of an equal footing as possible. We're going to do a very simple rubric of yes or no's. We've got 5 things we're going to look at. Is the frame rate okay? Are the controls responsive? Are the graphics comprehensible? So, frame rate. We're trying to get as close to 60 as possible. Now, you might be thinking that's impossible. This is a GBA. Never ran that fast. Racing games had tricks to simulate 60. Alright, so we're trying to get as close to smooth as possible. Some of them do, some of them don't. Responsive controls. This is a bit of a tricky one. When I was testing a lot of these, and I think I did actually test all of them at some point, some games had some kind of bizarre auto driving mechanic to them. Sometimes they would try and turn you around the track for you, and that would cause you to oversteer. Sometimes the game was lagging so bad it didn't really matter what you did, your inputs would be delayed. So there are yes or no's here. Does the game handle well? Are you feeling like you're racing, or are you feeling like you're kind of just along for the ride? Graphics comprehensible. Give me one sec here. Okay. Again, this is kind of a hard one. GBA is not the prettiest graphical system. It's one I don't really remember very fondly, especially for those games that were really trying to push the limits of the graphics and do pseudo 3D things, right? They were very pixelated, very scrunkly, very dirty, very rough looking, rough shot, right? So we're kind of gonna give this one a bit of a curve, you could say, in that it's like they don't have to be pretty. They have to be comprehensible. You have to know what you're looking at. And again, some games do this, some games don't. And then finally, or next one, is the music, is the audio okay? Or is it just fart noises? The GBA is notorious for having a very god-awful graphic or audio chip on it. And a lot of these games will try and use very compressed versions of console era or console music or console audio that was used in their contemporary games, which gives it like that, just like crunch, that kind of thing. Some games don't have any music while you're racing. That's why I wanted to change that to audio. And we're not docking points for not having music. Sometimes that's just how it is. All right, we can't hold that against them. So, is it okay? Is it farts? And finally, this is the most important one. Does the game make me want to play another round? Am I hooked in this? Am I having fun? Or am I not really enjoying this? Is this a little bit too incomprehensible? Is this for me? Now, I'm going to give this one a big old asterisk here. This is my rubric. This is my chart. All right. You can't judge a game on being fun objectively. You just can't. All right. It's an entirely subjective matter. And personally, I like the outrun games. I like the games where you are behind the car going really fast, watching the car go fast. All right. I'm not someone who likes the top-down perspective. I'm not someone who likes the isometric perspective where the map doesn't move. Those just don't interest me. If you're an RC guy, that's your entire thing. That is not my thing. So that's kind of why I lump those all together in one day, so we can do our best to judge them fairly. But generally, I'm going to try and be as objective as possible with this. And I do have to say, I think the majority do get a win, or get an okay for this one on me. But it's just, this is the closest I can get to, is this fun? Do I want to play another round? I think that's a fair enough way to kind of approach that. Okay, and then finally, like we already talked about, please ignore I'm just using dog show rulings. I don't know why, it just seemed to fit best. We're going to pick one as best in show for each, and then we're going to kind of decide what was the best one. All right. And speaking of the best one, a question for you. I should ask this before. If I asked you, hey, what was a racing game on the Game Boy Advance that you remember? You're getting a lot of head scratches because it was not a console known for racing games. Role-playing games? Absolutely. Tactical games? Yes. Action platformers and Metroidvanias? Very much so, yes. But racing games? Mm-mm. You're going to generally get two responses. You can get the F-Series or F-Zero games, which was like 2. A third one in Japan we never got. And then you're going to get Mario Kart, right? Those are going to be the two. And if I ask you which is the best racing game on the GBA, you're going to get probably one of these two. All right. So I'm going to tell you right now, they're not in the running. We're going to play them tonight to judge them against the others. But generally, they're not going to be competing with this. Okay. And that's only because this is more focused on the 100-odd other racing games that never really got to see too much of the light of day. All right, that's kind of what I want to focus on. We know these are okay. We know these are fun. We know these are acceptable. These are successes. All right, this was one of the games I wanted a Game Boy Advance for because I love the idea of linking them together and racing other people. I thought that was cool as hell. But we're not going to go through all of these games and say the final is like, oh, Mario Kart was the best. It seems like a cop-out to me, okay? So they're going to be played tonight. They're going to be judged separately tonight. We're going to kind of use them as the standard, among other things. One of the 4 games we're going to be using as a standard. But they will not be competing. So we'll play them, but we're not going to judge them. Just because they've already been judged. These are one of the few games that actually had any judgment passed on them back in the day. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about it now. So, one of the things, because I was pretty impressed when I was playing these games. Like, man, this is running well. Man, this is doing something I didn't know the GBA could do. What happened that this was just never really talked about? Why did these games never really see a lot of recognition? You know, because you go on YouTube. Like, what I would do is I'd go down the list, pick out the ones I saw that had racing titles. I would go onto YouTube, look up a playthrough, and then I'd go through the comments and like everyone would be saying, "Wow, why did I not know about this game?" Or "Wow, no one talked about this," or "I had this game." You know, like it was generally a mix of those. And I was kind of thinking that question myself. It was like, why was this not really talked about? And I kind of came up with uh, generally 5 things. Back in 2001, because I'm an old fucking fart at this point, you really only had one source of video game media, and that was the magazines. Because there was no GameFAQs yet in 2001. Websites were barely becoming a thing. There was no G4. There was no video game TV. There was no YouTube. There was no social media. The only thing we really had to learn about new games were magazines, right? And the journalists had a lot to do on their plates. So the handheld ports or the side-by-side simultaneous releases of some of these racing games that got like a console release and then a GBA release, they would mostly focus on the consoles, right? They would do those. And the GBA releases were just kind of relegated to the back pages. We'll go through some of those in a second here. I have some magazines we can look at. And this all kind of accumulated into this thing. There was, I think, really 3 issues. One, the journalists never covered them, or they'd give them a very shallow investigation, wouldn't really dive too deep into them. 2, if you did get a review of the game, they would take screenshots, and those screenshots, again, because it was a GBA trying to do a lot of things, would look very, very grody, right? Not very appetizing, especially coming on the heels of the very bright, very clear Game Boy Color games. GBA games tend to be a lot more like washed out, very gray browns, and sometimes it was hard to see what you're looking at or figure out what you're looking at. And then because there was no G4, because there was no YouTube, no social media, no file sharing of anything bigger than a couple kilobytes at this point, there was no footage. There's basically no footage of these games. If you wanted to see what one of these games looked like in motion, which is important for a racing game, right? You would have had to have known someone who had the system and had the game and sit there over the shoulder and watch them play it. Or play it yourself. So we've got this very, 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 very tiny fraction of players who may have actually had an interest, right? Because if you're interested in racing games, odds are you had a console. If you had a console and a Game Boy Advance, odds are you were going to get the console version. And obviously, because this was the 5th generation with PS2, GameCube, and Xbox, and Dreamcast, they looked a lot better than the Game Boy Advance, right? And that's really why I wanted to stop the discussion at Virtua Racing. Because that is really where the limit ended for the Game Boy Advance. So if you ever wanted to play Game Boy Advance racing games, you should not be in this 2001 mindset of this is an inferior port of a superior game on an inferior console. It should be, I want to play a 32-bit racing game. This is a 32-bit racing game. And because, hindsight's 2020, we're 20 years down the line now from this. And there's still a lot of love for 32-bit racing. There's a lot of love for 16-bit racers. I love them. I have many. I've got them for Genesis. I've got them for the Nintendo. I've got them for Saturn. Like, I've got a bunch of racing games. They're just fun. They're enjoyable still to this day. And, back then, that's not what you were thinking, You wanted the brightest and the best. You wanted the brand new stuff. This was the era where it was like the future was bright still. This was where gaming was at its peak, And then on top of that, on top of that, yeah. See, and you're kind of falling back into what I was saying here. It's like if I asked anyone what they're like a racing game they remember for GBA, you'd probably say this one, right? Not any of the other ones. On top of that dismissal, that failure to appreciate them for what they were, you had this rising surge of the, I don't know what would you call them, the comic reviewers, the people who've had more fun, more entertainment in ripping a bad game apart. And there were a lot of bad games, and there was a lot of them that deserved to be torn apart, and we are going to hit a couple of those. But there was generally the negativity. They focused on the negativity. They focused on pointing out the flaws and not appreciating the game. Sean Baby is the most apparent one. He was in EGM at this time. He was in the back page, and he would usually he would get the rest of the crap, was usually what he would title his articles, or something to that effect. And then you had the cottage industry pop up once YouTube did show up, of AVGN, and then everyone who wanted to be like AVGN, like Spoonie, all that. And they'd all just collectively shit on these games. And so you get to today, where we're past all that now. We're past the need to shit on shitty games. And now people are beginning to go back and appreciate a lot of these games, mostly because a lot of these games that had no publicity, the advertisements, which we'll show here in a second, didn't really show them off. The reviewers panned them or just ripped them open. And now that everything else is so goddamn expensive on the secondhand market, these are the games that are affordable. These are the games that are cheap. These are the games like, hey, you know what? Maybe we'll try Need for Speed on GBA. Well, fuck not. It's $3. What am I going to buy for $3 anymore? And so you're kind of having this resurgence of, hey, you know what? This is actually a lot of fun. I'm having a good time. So I've got, and I wasn't able to get all of them mapped out. I've got like 9 magazines. We're going to just very briefly blast through here, because we're already at 30 minutes in. Yeah, here we go. So, oh shit. Wait, can you see that? Yeah, you can see. Uh-oh. Can I see that? How did I fix this last time? My TV it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I've got it on the TV. It doesn't need to be on the TV. Okay, so we're looking at some Nintendo Powers and some Electronic Gaming Monthlies. This first one here actually is very special and near and dear to my heart. I would love one day if we could just have a magazine night. I would love to go through old magazines. I fucking, this is where I live. This is what I'm doing on my spare time if I'm not playing a game or getting ready for something. Is I'm going through old magazines. That one especially. That was a very special one for me. But we're going to look at this one here. Nintendo Power 149, October 2001. And we're not going to, okay. Here's the first thing you see. You open this up, and it's like, gee, I wonder what racing game for the GBA they were really pushing. What possible game could they have enjoyed, right? It's pretty much all about Mario Kart, this one, right? And this was probably this. I did have this one. This was probably the. This was probably the one that made me want to actually go out and buy it. See, we've got some old 89. That's actually how much they cost now. That's kind of sad. This was probably the magazine, the edition that made me really want to play it. And again, I want you to look at what they were focused on. Here's a giant, like 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9-page spread for Advance Wars, right? They were really pushing the platformers. Spyro, I actually want to look at Spyro sometime. I think this is one of those simultaneous ports where it's actually kind of okay. It's like a 1-to-1 almost. But there is something interesting way down in the back here. See if I can't miss it. Oh, there's a golf game. Ooh, okay, we'll come back to that. Here's Blue Wave. Here's Dragon Warrior Monsters 2. This, oh my god. This one. I used to read this so much as a kid. Holy cow. Here's Golden Sun. Shit you not, before GameFAQs, if you ever wanted to find any gins, this was the fucking copy you had to have. And I was very sad when I lost my copy. Pokemon. Luigi's Mansion. We're still going. We're all the way in the back now. Here's Game Boy A Go-Go. This is kind of where they just like speed run all the other things that weren't terribly important. And way down here, near the end, is a racing game. MX 2002. One of the ones we're going to be looking at this whole thing. And it's a very interesting game. Looking at these screenshots here, again, it looks scrungly, right? It looks grody. It looks like it's going to struggle. But what you can't really see back there, those rocks, those are three-dimensional. Those are not pre-rendered sprites. That is a three-dimensional terrain mapping in a GBA game. And MX is actually one of the ones I was very impressed with. They actually did a little blurb too, here in the reviews. Where did it go? Oh, here's Gadget Racers too. They liked Gadget Racers, gave it a 4.5. So that's another one we're going to be looking at. And here's MX2. They gave it a 2 out of 5. So they didn't really appreciate it as much as I did. But that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's like, if you wanted any information on these, there it was. It was like the same when we talked about TNN Fishing Championship, what the fuck that Game Boy was. Like, we had to go all the way into the very back end of the periodicals. Was this actually, did they... No, this was not them. Okay. Man, they really didn't appreciate Dragon Warrior Monsters 2, did they? Look at that. 3.5 stars? Really? Let's see. Here's another one. So let's look at this one here. This is 168. May. So that was 2001. 6 months after the Game Boy came out, or GBA came out. We had our first kind of hints at racing games, just kind of a smuggling. Here in 2003, we've got most of the library out, right? Here's Golden Sun, the second Golden Sun. There's Ruby and Sapphire. Whoa, jeez, excuse me. And when we talked about advertisements earlier, I want to emphasize something here. I don't think it was in this one, but we can find one here. When I'm talking about the games that would release all over the place, this really isn't as much of it is kind of a thing now. It's not as evident because there's less game systems, or they're all kind of more the same. But you see here this Rain Man game. You see this is what they used to do. They would just give you this long line of the things that was on, right? PC, GameCube, PS2, Oh, PlayStation and PS2. I never saw that. Xbox and Game Boy Advance. But you look over here at the screenshots, you'd be mistaken for thinking that that's what the Game Boy Advance looked like, right? You don't know because you don't get to see it. They don't have any screenshots of the GBA game, and why would they? Why would they put that there? It wouldn't really benefit them. So there was a lot like this that you kind of had these game advertisements, and they were just kind of just like, oh yeah, it's there. But the thing I wanted to look at here with this one, so we've got Lost Kingdom 2, we've got Wind Waker, we've got the e-reader. I might go on a side thing here really quick. Okay, 2002 Nintendo Awards, right? If there was ever a time for a GBA racing game category, it would be in here, right? But we don't have it. Instead of what we have, best game GBA, best graphics GBA. Look at what it was. It was Legend of Zelda and Metroid Fusion. Again, deserved, but still, if there's ever a time to actually recognize any of these other racing games, it would be here. But instead, what we've got is way down here at the bottom, they've got the fucking gag reel. Worst hair, Britney Spears. Most frustrating moment. Being picked up and carried around in Legend of Zelda Link's Past Force Woods. Wouldn't know that one. Doodle Duh. Harder Than College. Weirdest title. Right? They just kind of had some silly back of the shit ones, right? But this is kind of where the thinking was. Instead of actually recognizing things, they wanted to have the little silly ha-has. But let's look at another. Looking at Nintendo's one thing. Let's look at EGM here. We're gonna come back to that. I actually have something really interesting I want to point out. So this is. I didn't write this one down. November 2001. All right. So we looked at October. Here's the November one for EGM. And again, you've kind of got the same advertisements. You've got similar things going on. The EGM tended to be a lot more edgy, a lot more racy than Nintendo. Yeah, here we go. Ride like... Think you can ride like me. That's what we're going here. So this is Sean Palmer's Pro Snowboard. Blah, 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 blah. And then looking at... It was never a good sign to see an RP. Looking at what it's for is PlayStation, PS2, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance. Now, you're looking at that. That's not what the GBA is going to look like, right? But what do we know? Do we know? We don't, right? We have no idea what it's going to be looking like here. Here's fucking Get Fat. Jesus Christ. I need to play that game one day. That's one of those ones that just stuck in my head. There's a butt. My whole life. And it all kind of goes from there, right? Here's a racing game, NASCAR Thunder 2002. Is that what the NASCAR game's going to look like? Oh, no. Oh, darling baby, no. But it's on Game Boy Color, among other things. And then we kind of have to do the same thing we did with Nintendo Power. We go to the very back, at the bottom of the reviews, to see if there's an inkling of recognizing anything that had come out. Right? All the way past all this. Here's previews. Here's a review. No? Yeah, these are reviews. So we have to get past the big ones because they do full page reviews for the big ones, and we get into the little ones. There's Gear to Gear X. That was a GBA game. Oh shit! What was this? This is a Grand Theft Auto. Chinatown? Oh no, just Grand Theft Auto 3. Wow, this wasn't out yet. Man. Yep, there's the GBA. So we've got Mario Kart, Advanced Wars, F-Zero. I didn't realize those two were also release titles, weren't they? So that's probably another reason why everyone would remember them, or at least those who grew up in this era. Because I keep having to abbreviate. I keep having to add that stipulation. There's many young people exist now. It's kind of hard reading some of these now. Like these 2-page spread ones did not translate very well. Lady Saya had a lot of fucking advertisements too. Okay, so here's GBA. They covered Jackie Chan Adventures. Oh, this is a preview gallery still. Dokapon, Batman Vengeance, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magi Nation. That, oh man, that never happened. Look at that. I think, didn't I cover that when I did Magi Nation? I think I did. Now, where's the damn reviews at? Oh my god, we got 260 pages. Holy shit, this was a big fucking magazine. Yeah, that's too far. Okay, here's the review crew. I forget exactly who. I think it was Nintendo Power. They would actually list genres that the reviewers enjoyed most or would focus on. It was Monster Rancher 3? Oh, I didn't know that. This is still back when the Dreamcast was still around. Okay, so here's the Game Boy Advance games. So we've got Baseball, we've got Street Fighter 2, Fortress. Some of this is blurry as shit. There's usually a little post section area where they would kind of like just give you numbers. Maybe not in EGM. Yeah, I don't think in here. And then the very back would be, oh yeah, here's GT Advance. So here's just some codes to unlock things. We actually have, we might use that. Then in the very, very back was Sean Baby. Wherever he is. I don't know. He's in here somewhere. So you kind of understanding. I'm hoping I'm kind of demonstrating what we were looking at back in the day, right? A lot of emphasis on the console games, a lot of emphasis on the big winners of the big earners of the GBA titles, and you know, just not a lot of emphasis put on anything else. Yeah. So that's in general what I'm thinking a lot of the disconnect came from. But all the better for us, because now we get to enjoy them. One thing I want to say before we continue, depending on where you live, Europe, Asia, PAL, wherever, one thing that I had initially started when I finally got all the games put on a list. I had like 120. All right. That shrunk significantly when I realized a lot of these games were either one, the same game released in a different region under a different name, or two, the same game released in multiple regions under various names. In the GT series, like that one we saw in EGM, was kind of demonstrative of that. It was fuck. What was that? What was that TV show? Top Gear. GT Advanced was called Top Gear. In Japan, it was Advanced GT. Just in general, there was only about 4 or 5 of the GT series, but because there were 4 or 5 in 3 or 4 different regions, that ended up being about 20 different games. If you were just going by names, right? Penny Racers or Gadget Racers was another one. We got Gadget Racers. Europe got Penny Racers, and then they went and released it again and swapped the names. So there was a Gadget Racers and a Penny Racers in Europe, and they're the exact same game, as far as I can tell. All right. If they're not, let me know. But the takeaway from the magazines is, one, not a lot of advertisements for the actual games. Two, reviewers panned or dismissed them. Three, what advertisements were for the multiple platform ones didn't show anything for the games, right? General, not a lot of press. All right. So, those are now out of the way. Let's play some of these, huh? Oh, let's finally play some fucking... I am so fucking sweaty. Jesus. And again, tonight, we're not going to focus on... We're not going to actually get into the actual racing games. We're going to do... We're going to do 3 of them. No, 4. 5, maybe. We're going to do... Outrun, Pole Position... Maybe Spy Hunter. Spy Hunter is kind of a weird one because it goes even further back. And I was going to keep it for the top downs, but there really aren't that many top downs that play like Spy Hunter. It's like where it's like it's a vertical, it's almost like a shmup because it's vertical scrolling. There's like, it's just Spy Hunter. That was the only one I found. And then we're also going to play Mario Kart and F-Zero. So let's see. I think we're going to start with Namco Museum. Oh, my controller's shut off. I talked too long. Pole position. So I once again, the things we're looking at. One, our perspective. We can get a nice view of the track, a nice view of our car, which is important for like immersion. A nice view of the landscape as we destroy ourselves. In general, just the view looks good. The game looks good. The game flows very well. Again, we're talking about the car is basically static, right? What's moving is the screen. It's coming towards us. This is actually kind of hard to see. It's such a good illusion for these games. But on some of the GBA that are a little more budget conscious, we'll say, it's definitely a far more of a obvious effect. And I failed. Let's play again. This is actually a really hard game, especially when you're trying to talk. I forgot to shift. That would probably help, right? If I can remember how to shift. Okay, I don't know how to shift. It's fine. Just don't hit the signs. Maybe we don't need to shift. I'm going at 173. Maybe I do need shift. I'm in low gear. How do we shift? Nope, that's brake. Okay, I don't remember how to shift. Nope, that's not it. There it is. There's a shoulder button. Oh my god, yeah, we're really fucking flying now. Oh. And see, this is what I'm talking about. 1982. 1982, and it was already this good. Right? It's fast, it's smooth, it looks good. Right? That's what we're looking for. And I lost again. Okay. But that's pole position, right? I could sit here and play this all night, honestly. Alright. So we're going to close that. Now we're going into the Sega Arcade Gallery. And this one has Outrun. Again, if you enjoy these old racing games and you have a Game Boy, pick it up. I will say, though, if you just want to play pole position and Outrun on something, there's like they ported these things 3 million times to Sunday. Outrun specifically, oh my god, I fucking love these. I need to find this cartridge. This is amazing out. This is fucking amazing. The PlayStation, it was on one of the Namco museum discs. Okay, so this Super Hang-On, we didn't really talk about. These are kind of two. Super Hang-On is very, very similar. These all kind of do the same thing, right? Regardless of what you're doing in the game, the screen is scrolling towards you and you have to react to it, right? Looks amazing, though. I fucking love this. What was the arcade system that they put these on? Hold on. It was one particular motherboard they were able to do this with, so... The Sega System 16. That's what it was based on. That's what these are all using. I could play all four of these. I fucking love these. We'll do out Super Hang-On today, too, since it fits the theme. Now this is the older Outrun, but again, look how nice it looks. Look how smooth it is. Look at the perspective. Look how much you can see. It's an amazing game. I fucking love Outrun. I love Outrun. I love Turbo Outrun. I love Outrunners. I love them all. I could play these all fucking day. Like, if someone came up to me, some fucking space alien from Mars, asked me what it means to be American, I would give them this. This is what it means. I could just sit here and play this for the rest of the night. And again, it's important. This is almost like, if it wasn't so straight, I would classify this as a rally game. And there are distinctions between... Oh god, there we go. Dumped out my blonde. There's a distinction between rally games and course games, which is why I'm gonna go this way. I made the difference, or made the distinction. Rallies are they're a lot shorter, like straightaways, a lot more curves, uh, uneven terrain, and you're racing to checkpoints, right? You're racing for time. Oh my god. Oh my god. Straight fucking murder them. God, I need to find this for the Genesis. I need to find this for Saturn. Ooh. Yeah, fast, yeah. Ah. So this is kind of the one I'm really kind of like, I'm going to judge everything against. Is I want it smooth, I want it fast, I want like hairpin turns and fast reactions, you know? Things like that. Oh, hey, I got 14th. Alright. How do we get back? No, that's not me. Oh, here we go. Let's look at Hang On, Super Hang On. We are gonna also, we're gonna be looking at more than just car races. We are looking at motorcycles. We're looking at monster trucks. A few weird ones. Carts, obviously, they've got their own category. So it's not just going to be car games. And that's Jesus Christ. That said, it's also not just going to be like the bike games aren't going to be their own category. They're kind of mixed in. And I've kind of mixed them in based on their gameplay and what they feel like they are. Oh, Jesus, that's... Oh, my God. That is fast. Whew. Oh, God, there we go. Off into the fucking horizon. Look at the background scrolling. It's so nice. You know, these graphics, they aren't the prettiest. They are, oh my, hey, my God, that dude killed me. He cut me off. They aren't the most advanced. They aren't the prettiest in the world, but they get the job done, right? Okay. One round in Afterburner. Just one. Please. I fucking love this game. Oh my god. One of the most formative fucking memories I had. I was sleeping over at my best friend's house, and he had a Genesis, and that's where I got my love for a Genesis at. But I had gone to bed, and oh god, I have to play like Crabclaw almost. I remember waking up, and it's like 2 or 3 in the morning, and he's just on like the most fucking intense run of Afterburner 2 I've ever seen. Should I be going faster? How do you go faster? Like, in that game is fucking gorgeous. The Genesis port is amazing. One more. I don't think this port really does this game particular justice. This game is so good. Crash. Oh yeah, there we go. It's when you hit the other stages, like, it really starts popping off. Got him blowing all my misses. I love how it tilts with you. That's so nice. Alright, we're just gonna let it out. Otherwise, I'm just gonna be sitting here playing this forever. I need to find the copy of this. Like, I haven't played GBA games in a while. I need to find a way to play this. I love this collection. Space Harriers are really a really weird one for me. It was apparently a hard game to port. And I was like, I've watched, like, I get sometimes these videos of, like, port comparisons. This one really seemed to be a litmus test for how well your system could run. Like, it took to the Saturn to get a actual one-to-one port of this game. There's a lot going on here. But I do have to say, I think the Master System had a decent port. I might be mistaken. Oh fuck, you ran got me. I might be thinking of Outrun. I don't know. The Master System, like, I really have a great appreciation for that thing. It was just kind of forgotten by us here in the States. But it did a lot of things really well. One of the things it did well was, like, a lot of these Sega arcades. It had a lot of ports that ran far better than it had any business on an 8-bit system. Giza. I go higher. Yeah, I can. I love how this dude looks like Marty McFly. Or the dude from, what was it, They Know? What was that movie called? Ah, they got me. Ah! Okay. But yeah, if you like any of these games, absolutely look into this. Great ports of all. Okay. Close that. We can go ahead and look at Spy Hunter really quick too. This was an arcade game that got ported several times. It may or may not be in a Midway collection somewhere. I don't remember if this is uniquely... this actually looks very nice. Yeah, I don't remember if this is a unique entry to the franchise. This is just Spy Hunter. It's such a cool fucking slideshow, though. This do look really nice. Now, I will say I'm just kind of playing this for shits and giggles. This will not be one of the ones that we look at for criteria. Oh shit, wait, let's go back. Let's do arcade mode. Oh, it's locked. Oh! I'm mistaken. This is its own game. Shit, I thought this was top down. What was I thinking of? Oh. Well, this is actually very nice. You know what? Okay, I guess this kind of is a good indicator of what we're looking at. This is more of a mission racing game where they give you little objectives. Which I'm botching horribly right now. So, alright. This one's actually going to go into the mission section. That's my bad. I thought this was the classic Spy Hunter. Maybe what I was thinking of was the arcade mode they have here. But again, you can already kind of see what I'm talking about, where the GBA was able to simulate these 3D environments, high speeds, the car looks nice, it's responsive. Yeah, fuck them up, yeah. Yeah. Fuck the civilians. Acceptable losses. Oh, what the hell is this? This is cool. This is way better than I thought it'd be. Oh shit. I have a gun. Oh, this was every kid's fucking dream. Oh my god, do you see? Oh, look at boats. There's boats. I don't think I have. There was maybe like one boat game. Oh, I have a machine gun boat. There were not many boat-themed racing games. Unfortunately. Who's SATCOM? Oh, there's jumps too? Whoa! Yeah. That was fun. Okay. We're going to come back to this. That's such a pleasant surprise. Alright. So... now we're going to go down and look at Mario Kart. Like I said, this is obviously considered the best. And probably it would be the best because it's got the most polish, the most effort put into it, the most production value, probably. I can't imagine how much this one costs more than all the other ones. But, you know, it's Mario. It's kind of a combination of... yeah, fuck you, Yoshi. It's kind of a combination of the Super Mario Kart and Mario Kart 64. Where it's generally Super Mario Kart, but it's got the aesthetics of 64. Which is fine. I've always loved 64 most. That's such a interesting game, honestly. Wow. We'll say some of these tracks feel awfully familiar to another series. There's certainly not Mario themed. Oh man, I bet this would have been a lot of fun to play as a bunch of people in a little circle playing like 4-player. The dream. I wonder if it's actually, is there drifting? Whoops. Oh, help. Get me out of here. On out. We may have to wrap this up pretty soon. I think the phone's getting hot. Wow, just give me all the stars, huh? You know, I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb here. I'm going to say something that might get me in a lot of trouble. I don't think this is the best card game, honestly. I'm just thinking there are other card games I played that are a little bit more responsive and ran a little bit neater. And it might just be that the phone is overheating, which it definitely is. But the way the camera swerves when you're kind of going around a corner is not particularly pleasant. I'm not really enjoying that little ding. There's some little dinging going off, too. Oh, man, I'm not doing good. That's a better turn. Getting my sea legs now. Get out of here. Oh, God. I'm not doing well on this map at all. Ah! I badly need some help here.